One of the toughest parts about any game of Commander is just the start of it, the rule 0. How many mass land destruction spells do you have? Are you playing a precon? What power level are you? These questions and more surround the whole social anxiety part of everything, and with the mixture of preconceived notions and just judgmental behavior, a lot of it can be a little tough to navigate for a lot of people meeting each other for the first time. Those of you that frequent different LGSs or just go to cons, I wanted to use this video as a soft guide on how to use the bracket system to have good rule 0 conversations. It's one that gets lost in the mix, as many other EDH content creators are more focused on how to optimize your draws and optimize your deck building. I'm here to have that conversation because one of my bigger proponents on this channel is being open and honest, having that conversation with folks to make sure at least if the game doesn't go well for you, at least the vibes are there, and honestly you just make some friends along the way because it is about the gathering too. This conversation was spawned by this post here about how brackets have spawned actual rule 0 conversations, and honestly in my experience it has. I do have a limited kind of in-person experience now. Most recently I haven't really gone to an LGS just because of life being busy, but all my Commander has been played through Spell Table, which I think helps because I have been rather familiar with some people, but I still do meet new people along the way, and I think having these type of conversations are a lot easier now with the bracket system, and I'm hoping to outline some of that today and outline just a very short, sweet example of it. I don't want to go super in depth because I think that complicates the whole issue, but let's go over the post first and then we'll literally just break it down. I was a bit suspicious of the brackets at first, but I have to say that I'm pleasantly surprised by the amount and quality of in real life Spell Table rule 0 conversation discussions since the brackets came out. It seems to have given people a common understanding and vocabulary, which I agree with. I think that's the problem that the initial Power 10 scale had. And I recently listening to the Howling Salt Mines episode, one of the members of the Salt Mine really didn't like the bracket system, and I think they completely missed the point on of it. Actually, they were just getting to the whole semantics of the situation, which wasn't really helping, but whatever. Of course, the actual bracket levels ended up being a bit hard to pin down, but the vocabulary is key because it gave people a unified message from Wizards of the Coast. And I think that's the thing. People are missing the fact that having a pinned down authority figure just adds that much more brevity behind the rules, that much more backing, because it's the difference between, to many people, honestly, it's kind of dumb, but to many people it's the difference between maybe a parent telling them something or like an older sibling telling them something. There's more to listen to based on the authority figure. At least people are talking about it. I can really see the increase in conversations happening, and it's refreshing. No arguments thus far, although it does happen. Just a few minutes with people changing decks to match power level of the other players. For example, except for one guy who refused to switch out of a deck with Blood Moon at bracket 2 table. Okay, all right. Okay. And you know what? This is an active thing that I'm currently contesting with. And before I head too far into this topic, I wanted to get y'all's maybe quick feedback on this. So I have a Reaper King deck, and I built this to be a lower power deck originally. This was pre-brackets, and I didn't have any tutors to it. I didn't have, like, obviously the Reaper King, when you have scarecrows enter, you can destroy any permanent. So obviously there's that aspect of mass land destruction, but it's very televised. Again, there's no tutors in it. There's a lot of basics and a lot of very simple tap duels and all of that stuff. So it's very clear what was going on. I was very clear and upfront about this. But now with the bracket system, I can't really play Reaper King in many brackets. I'm forced to almost build this like high level, which was kind of the juxtaposition of it as to why I liked it. It was a mass land destruction deck that operated with like really cool typal synergies that no longer is playable based on how I wanted to play it in the current bracket system. I could just not target lands, but then I could just play another 5-color deck. I could just play Morophon, if I'm going to be honest. If I wanted to play my Shapeshifter Typal deck, I could just play Morophon. That's not the point. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Is there a way to kind of get around this? I'm not sure. But regardless, I think where this discussion needs to go is with the brackets themselves. So there's some criteria, and that's the key. There is language and it is concise. And yes, there are vast chasms in upgraded 3 and optimized 4, but I think 1 and 2 and 5 are pretty well defined in my opinion. 2 being where the precons are, 1 being the ultra casual meme deck, and 5 being CDH. But again, 3 and 4 is where the chasms are, and I think at the end of April we're going to get hopefully a better implementation of this. But I think a lot of people have generally had good experiences with this, and where I wanted to start this is just keeping this very simple. We're going to bring up the notepad. So first and foremost, the things that we want to keep in check is how to have a rule 0 conversation. So there's a ton of things to consider when having a discussion like this. And really, it's about keeping it short and sweet. You want to have a type of conversation that you can generally have in any play group, and it just leads to give or take the same results. So obviously, first and foremost, be a nice person, right? So, introduce yourself. Act like you're there to enjoy yourself, and be welcoming, because part of this is that it's part of the gathering. You don't know who you're sitting across from, even if it is at a CDH table. A lot of times people may be a lot newer to CDH games, and I've heard some telling of CDH players that don't like newer players and everything, which I think is like complete garbage. I think that's kind of unfortunate. I am a relatively new CDH player, and the CDH players that I've come across have been really fantastic people in terms of, being open and honest. Like, they're strict with me when they need to be, but they're like doing so in a relatively nice and clear way. Like, yeah, they might point out, okay, no, you can't do that like at all, or they stop me. You're like, oh, that's a mistake, don't do that. But they're very clear, and they're helping me kind of keep track of things. I'm very clear as to where I am. I'm new to this game. Can someone, just keep aware of if I'm doing anything wrong? I have the general purpose of this deck, and that's how I want to play it. And so that was my soft rule 0 discussion when it comes to CDH, but I want to be welcoming, introduce myself. Hi, my name is Shaf. And again, I'm here to play CDH. I'm here to enjoy myself. I'm there smiling. And that's the key. When you're here to play Magic, just remember that even if you are going through a lot of things in life, Magic can be that outlet for you. Magic can be that positive experience for you. And it doesn't just have to be about winning. It doesn't just have to be about coming out on top. And that's the type of experience that you need to rewire your brain to, which can be a lot harder than said. So that's just something for you to think about. So that's that initial criteria there. But when it comes to the conversation itself, here's some initial criteria. So what is the bracket you're playing to, right? And that's going to be one of the initial discussions you have. And especially if it's, i.e. bracket 2, are you upgraded? Right. And so this is definitely something that can happen. For example, you could be playing a pre-con and say, hey, I just included like 5 cards in here from like a set I recently included. And I think within reason, depending on those 5 cards, it's pretty reasonable to still be in bracket 2, or be considered a really, really low bracket 3, depending on that conversation. Again, that gets deeper into the chasms of 3 and 4. But first and foremost, what bracket are we all trying to play? And this is the vocabulary that I think really helps. And then the next conversation you want to have is, if some things are unclear, you want to ask, are we playing any mass land destruction or denial? Right. And so this is one of the clear parts about the brackets themselves, where we get into, no mass land denial, no mass land denial in 3. Although I think there are some bracket 3 players that are okay with that, and that's part of that conversation that you're having. And especially once you build a repertoire with a certain group of players, you can have that conversation like, hey, maybe in a game or two, we're here for a bit. Can we have a bracket 3 game with some mass land destruction? Like, again, 3 game changers and everything, but I'm playing Armageddon, Yoko Hops, and all that stuff. Like, I have a Super Friends deck that relies on stuff like that. Is that okay with you? And, if you have that rule 0 conversation, again, you build that repertoire, people know how you are, because again, you introduce yourself, you act like you're there to enjoy yourself, you are welcoming. You're more likely to have these people agree with you and just be well-mannered with you in general. Next up, you're talking about combos. And so at the end, I'm going to kind of bring this all together. So what are the combos you're playing, and how fast do they use your commander? Is it, and do they use game changers? So this is, i.e. Thassa's Oracle. And so for a while I had a group hug deck that used Thassa's Oracle as a win condition. With the introduction of the game changers list, I really had to kind of rethink that win condition. And so I kind of changed some of that around, because I used to have like what I would consider a 6 to 7 power level deck. But with the introduction of game changers, I really had to change that, because the game changers pushed it to a bracket 4, but it played nowhere near the level of like a bracket. It couldn't hang with bracket 4s really. It just had a bunch of like fun random cards that are powerful. I just didn't have anything busted to do with them. Like half the time they were just tutoring for Thassa's Oracle or Labman, but I had no way to like really cheat them out anyway. The way I was milling myself out was with, oh my god, it's like blue 2, you pay 0 and you exile the top card of your library and you prevent the next 1 damage for each card you exile that way. So pretty much you could just pay 0 a bunch of times and just exile your whole library, and then you can Thassa's Oracle. I think it's Thought Lash is the card, but regardless, those are the type of slow ways that I wanted to win, and these are the type of conversations you have, and I think it's perfectly fine to reveal some of these. You know, what are the game changers you're playing, especially if you're in bracket 3. I think if you, once you get to, you know, obviously if you're in bracket 1 and 2, this conversation is not relevant. If you're in bracket 4, it's almost not relevant, and in 5, whatever, right? So these are the type of conversations you're ideally going to be having in 3, especially when it comes to mass land destruction. In 4, you can be optimized, you could be playing Armageddon, you could be playing the Yokel Hops, but when it comes to something like a bracket 3 type of game, you need to have that conversation, be open and honest. You're a black deck. All 3 of my game changers are used for tutors. I'm in blue. One of my game changers is Thassa's Oracle, but I also have some green. I'm using this game changer, blah, blah, blah. I think being open and honest is very good. And especially it helps like direct the power level of what you're trying to do. So for example, in my Obeka deck, the key to that deck is I always like to explain to people, this is turbo initiative. It tries to use the commander a little bit. It likely won't for more than 1 or 2 times, but if you do leave the commander out, it's going to get really nuts. Regardless, all my game changers are tutors, and really I'm just here to flicker through the initiative a bunch of times. That's the goal. And so once I get to a certain point, there is 1 infinite combo in there, and I can try and assemble that. Otherwise, I can value my way through a bunch of the initiatives and win through overwhelming odds that way. And so that's how I like to explain my Obeka deck. Again, going through the fact that all 3 of my game changers are tutors. I don't necessarily state what they are, but you can kind of allude to the fact that, you know, without being specific, you can just straight up say, you know, Rhystic Study, blah, blah, blah. But for the tutors, if I say all 3 of my game changers are tutors, you're thinking Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor, and Demonic Tutor. Those are all 3 of my game changers in that deck. They're tutors to specifically not grab like the infinite combos, but specifically for the initiative creatures, because one thing that deck can struggle with is just not having enough flicker effects or not having enough initiative creatures out there, because that's just how many they printed in Grixis colors. Regardless, that is one way to have that conversation. And the last 2 things I like to ask are you playing with fetches or duels? Because technically speaking, duels and fetches do follow like under the line of bracket 3. You technically can, right? Like, so if we go into the bracket 3 definitions here, no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns, late game 2 card infinite combos, and 3 game changers. So it says nothing about tutors, and the fetches aren't considered game changers. Now, of course, this could change in the final implementation of things. That would be a really big change. I think it might be a good one. But when it comes to fetches and duels, that's the type of conversation I like to have in terms of, okay, are you playing like a really clean mana base? That's going to inform me that, especially if you're playing like a 3-4 color deck, you're not going to have any mana problems. Generally speaking, you probably know what you're doing in terms of building out your mana base. If I see like a pretty consistent talisman or 2 out on your game, like I'm going to be focusing on you in terms of like mentally thinking about, okay, this is a player that probably is playing pretty efficient for a bracket 3 game. These are the type of things that I want to keep aware of. And then finally, are you playing with proxies? Now, these are really my general criteria here. And especially when it comes to proxies, I'm pretty open and honest about them. I love playing with proxies. Especially in a commander sense, I highly promote proxies, and I'm beyond that whole elitist idea of I only proxy the cards I own. Look, not everyone is made of $1 million. Feel free to play whatever you're playing. And what I like about the bracket system is it really directs proxies in a way where, yeah, you can play with whatever proxies you want. You still can't play more than 3 game changers if you're playing bracket 3 though. So you can proxy it however you want, build whatever deck you want. You still have to meet these guidelines. And again, still are vast chasms of 3 and 4, but where we combine all of this is maybe a conversation like this. So you say something like, hi, my name is Shaf. I appreciate all y'all coming down. Thank you for inviting me out to this group here. What are the type of brackets games that we want to get into? Okay, we want to get into bracket 3. That's pretty sweet. Are we playing any mass land destruction, any combos, stuff like that? Oh, you're playing a combo? Is it using your commander? Oh, you got like Ishin as your commander? Are you using like extra combats? Okay, that's cool. Are you using any, oh, you're playing like Demir? You're using like Thassa's Oracle as your game changer? Oh, like something self-mill? Like, oh, no. Like I don't have you know, this one card combo that works with Thassa's Oracle, but I do have ways to like self mill. I'm playing a mill deck. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you can mill us, or you can mill yourself, or maybe you're milling everyone at the table at the same time. Okay, that's cool. And what are your game changers, if y'all don't mind me asking? I'm playing my Becca deck. It's got 3 tutors in it, and you know, kind of in black themselves, and that's where my game changers are at. And they might kind of word off their game changers, and you know, they might name like 1 or 2, and a lot of people might consider that like revealing their deck. But I think what's key about the game changers is they are these like overwhelming odds of these cards where they're so powerful that they either work directly in the combos that you're talking about and help inform the type of commander that you're already playing. So being open and honest about, I'm playing an Izzet deck. My Izzet deck that I'm currently changing right now, my Keranos deck, is a infinite combo dot deck. Like I'm putting in Niv Mizzet Perun and like not Perun, but the Niv Mizzet Firemine card, I believe, and some Ophidian Eye and all that stuff. But I originally had it with just like Splinter Twin combos and ways to get that Splinter Twin combo. Otherwise, it just played hard control. And so when it came to that, I'm just honest. I'm like, hey, this is infinite combo dot deck. I have a bunch of 2-card infinite combos here. I'm playing an Izzet control deck. Otherwise, that's really where it ends up being. Those are my primary win conditions. I got Splinter Twin in there. I got Kiki Jiki in there. That's how I'm trying to win. So if you see one part of that combo, that's what you got. And that's straight up like how I played it. And so I think being honest about that is important in the bracket 3 metagame, because when it comes to bracket 1 and 2, it's a lot simpler. In bracket 1, you can just have that conversation of like, hey, what bracket are you playing? You're playing 1? Oh, sweet. What's your theme? Like, oh, again, like people that are looking to the left in the art. Sweet. That's really cool. Do you have any combos in there? Like, oh, I have this like 3-4 card combo in there that does this, and okay, blah blah blah. And are you playing with any proxies? Yes, I'm playing with these proxies. Are you cool with it? Of course I'm cool with it. Just let me know. And then especially once it comes to bracket like 3 and 4 decks, I think just like being aware of proxies is really important when it comes to how the proxies are made, because ultimately I think you're cool with playing proxies. What I want to know is, if you're playing a proxy, what is the type of proxy I'm looking out for? My number one pet peeve with proxies is just people writing down the name of the card on the back of a card. I hate that. I hate that. Look, unless you're using some type of token, you're using like a whiteboard card to design a token on the spot, that's fine. But when it comes to designing a proxy, I would really like it if y'all just actually took the time to even just not even print out the proxy, like take the time to get a proxy card or a blank card and draw out the proxy, like the power, toughness, the types, like put the name in bold. So I at least, like, you know, if it's a common card, I can get what it is, right? Don't be proxying random niche cards with like 6 lines of text. Like at least, I don't know, just put some keywords in there. There's clear ways to kind of show what this card is doing, and don't be secretive about it. That's the thing. When it comes to proxies, I want them to be clear. I want to be able to grab this and for you to have the ability to just show me, even have it up on your phone. Just be like, hey, these are proxies that I have. They're not clear. I didn't have the time to do it. This is a testing deck. I have it up on my phone though. Can I show y'all? Okay, fine. That's perfect. Don't hide it from me though. You know, be honest. These are the proxies that I have. These are what they're testing. Be like, okay, you know what? That's so many. We'll just deal with them as they come down, right? You put them on the stack, and then we'll figure it out there. Someone might thought seize you. Someone might get you to discard this card. We'll figure it out once it comes up. It may never come up. And again, that's another great way to have that rule 0 discussion. Hi, my name is this. What bracket are you playing? Any combos? Oh, you got combos. You have to deal with your commander. Any game changers? What game changers are you playing? And are you playing with fetches and duels? Are you playing with proxies? A lot of that is involved in that bracket 3 discussion. Once it comes to the externalized, once it comes to optimized, this conversation could be a little bit different as well. When it comes to 4, there's a vast difference between, you know, a deck just adding a 4th game changer to then be put into bracket 4 versus a deck using all game changers that is borderline CDH without the consideration of a meta game. So that is the type of conversation that you can have as well. Hey, we want to play high level bracket 4. Okay, are you playing with fast mana, or are you playing with like just a slightly better like bracket 3? You know, is it low bracket 4? Are you playing with like the opals and you know, the Moxen and kind of being near CDH? That is the type of conversation I like to have as well, because that's really what it is. There's almost no middle ground. Are you playing with a really high up like bracket 3? You know, you got the best of the best, fetches, duels, whatever. Or are you playing like super high bracket 4 with like fast mana? That's the difference there. And these are the type of conversations you can have. And part of that comes from just playing the game and having that type of understanding. And as you use this type of words, like this wording over and over again, it can help inform other players as well. Because I think from a lot of casual player bases out there, there aren't too many people that are actively aware of these brackets. Again, for those of you that are watching this content that I'm making here, you are part of the vocal minority that are out there commenting, liking videos. A lot of Commander players aren't necessarily doing that. They're not as enfranchised. They're used to the kitchen tables. They might go to the LGS every so often. And so introducing this type of language is very important in being transformative in your community and also curating a positive experience. So I think, you know, I hope this video served as a great introduction to that Rule Zero conversation. And I hope I didn't miss anything. These are the type of ways that I have very quick, consistent Rule Zero conversations. Those are the criteria that I generally like to use. And overall, I do like what the Commander bracket system, especially its beta implementation, has done. And I'm really excited for its final iteration to see how that can help guide further discussions, further unity in the Commander format.